I promise you this is going to be an interesting one. Puneet is an incredible industrialist doing amazing work in the defense space. But I just want to start, with your permission, with a small personal story, Puneet. We have, in our midst, a person who I consider, he doesn't remember me, but I remember him very well. And it's your father, Satish Kaura. And not only is he a visionary who built Samtel, but very few people know that he actually gave me my first page one story as a journalist. I had interviewed him more than 20 years ago, and he'd told me about some plans that Samtel had regarding defense, and that gave me my first page one story in a business newspaper all those years ago. So thank you very much, sir, and thank you for being here at the NDTV Defence Summit. Samtel, an incredible organization that is innovating, that has been very much part of the Indian military for a very, very long time. And Puneet is the next generation of Samtel, taking this great organization forward, and is an amazing example of a company that has grown and sort of flowed along with India's defense journey. Puneet, I'd like to start with, as always, Operation Sindoor, because, how can we not acknowledge Operation Sindoor at a defense summit, right? Samtel is a company which, among many other things, builds multifunction displays that are the cockpit displays in many of the Indian Air Force fighter aircraft. So when you're picturing what the Indian Air Force Vice Chief just said in his presentation today about the manner in which the Air Force fired all those long-range weapons into Pakistan, those pilots, in some of those cases, I guess, would have been looking at Samtel systems in their cockpits. So this is real stuff we're talking about. So my first question to you, even as the topic of this discussion is on that big electronics leap, avionics, the nervous system of our combat technology, Puneet, is in the backdrop of Operation Sindoor. Give us what your big takeaways have been, and how is that fueling the next leap for a company like yours that's been so involved in combat technology of the Indian military for so long?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. This is my second time here. We were here last year as well with you for first time. Last time it was with Vishnu. And it's always a pleasure to partner with NDTV. I think talking about Operation Sindoor, let's go back a few years. And we've heard a few people today talk about that. But our Honorable Raksha Mantri also mentioned about the journey, especially in the last 10 years. But if you go back slightly more into like early 2000, 2001, that's where this defense sector actually opened up for private sector. It happened to be still a BJP government at that time. It was Prime Minister Vajpayee was at the helm. And, if you look back in the last 25 years, it has been a phenomenal journey, okay? Of course, Operation Sindoor, what it did was, it was like a star for the defense industry because it gave an opportunity to a lot of companies like ourselves to really demonstrate what we have to the world. There was a lot of talk of what India is building in terms of technology. Are we really that good? Are we, world class or not? In many ways, that Operation Sindoor answered a lot of those questions by itself. So, nothing better than war, battle-proven products for the world, and that's what happened over there. Talking about our own journey, we also honestly started, as you just mentioned, you did my father's interview, and it was 20 plus years ago. So that was the beginning of our journey, and we actually have traveled a lot because if I look at what we were doing in Operation Sindoor, pretty much most of the defense, aerospace-related products, which are either with Army or with Air Force, were using cockpit displays. So if you remember, we just met recently, we said Samtel makes the Eagle Eyes for the armed forces, definitely for Air Force and for the Army. And of course, as we move along for naval aviation as well. I think what happened during this whole journey was that we have proven to the world that the products that we make are not only the best, they compete in terms of the innovation that we build into the products, but we also have products that are competing in terms of price. And these price points, if you look at what we did with our Mangalam mission, I mean, it was phenomenal success. And look, we were the cheapest in the world to reach space. And I think this is an example set for our defense industry as well. So I feel that Operation Sindoor was a star that really brought all this in front. And we have more talk about all this because people are more aware about it. But the work started many years back. And, that's what we saw during Operation Sindoor.
You know, Puneet, in the world of combat technology, when you're talking about something like Operation Sindoor, most of the spotlight is going to be on the weapons, on the missiles, on the guns, on the aircraft. Less attention is paid to, the nervous system and the brains behind these things. The electronics, the communication systems, the data links, the cloud, the artificial intelligence. And that is a space that your company occupies. And I do know that you are known to be a risk taker in some of these things. Give us a kind of preview into what is next for Samtel in these spaces where India has no choice but to be self-reliant.
So, if I reflect back again, basically, when I look at the global market, and I think your question is more pertinent to the opportunities again and what is possible in the global market. So, one thing that we are missing is I was actually invited to one of the briefings that happened post Operation Sindoor. And this briefing was very high profile, but they called a few industry people. And this was itself, the kind of the trust they have now to discuss these issues openly in a closed room, but with the industry. So we were privy to a lot of things that went very well and that, we still need to improve on. Talking about some of the areas basically that we were looking at, one of the discussion that happened was, are we creating enough center of excellences in the country for, various kind of domains that we operate in? And you're talking about the nervous system. You hit the nail on the head. Actually, basically, if we don't create an ecosystem in terms of center of excellences for this nervous system that you're referring to, we will never have a complete Atmanirbharta in the country. We will always be dependent on foreign OEMs, and we will never have a capability which will be from zero to the final product, completely made in India. And from that perspective, this nervous system plays the most critical role in my sense. Look at avionics companies in the world. There are multiple avionics companies. We operate in a defense display division, but there is first of all, the global defense industry is about 2.7 trillion. And this includes aerospace. Defense itself is 800, or about $1 trillion in procurement, okay? And India is doing about $20 billion of that. Now, if you look at electronic space, that's about 30% in terms of value. That's where the ecosystem comes in. Whether you look at a fighter aircraft, you look at rotary wings, armored vehicle tanks, all of that requires a lot of this ecosystem of electronics. And till we have a focused effort of building this with few center of excellences and some companies that are mastering the cause. And I think we've started off on that journey. If you heard the minister today carefully, he did mention about creating, a more robust private sector in the country. And I think what I'm saying is part of that. So this is where we are. I think we are playing a role in that, definitely. Innovation is a big issue, which I will talk about a little later.
We're very privileged to be doing this session with two veteran aviators in the front row, Admiral Arun Prakash, former Chief of the Naval Staff, War Hero Veer Chakra, and Air Chief Marshal Vivek Ram Chaudhary, former Chief of the Air Staff, also a veteran fighter pilot. So they know a few things, more than a few things about multifunction displays and how cockpits have changed over the years. And I'm sure that they've sat in aircraft that have had your systems as well. But Puneet, taking things forward just a little bit more, AI, artificial intelligence, is that new word that is sprinkled into every conversation. But in this conversation, it actually means something, beyond just a kind of buzzword. Can you tell us, or is there anything you can share with us about how AI may be guiding some of the innovations and business decisions that you move forward with now in terms of combat tech?
First of all, Air Marshal Chaudhary, pleasure to be speaking while you are here. He knows this company very well, and he's been a big supporter for us. Talking about AI in defense, I think AI is everywhere, and as we speak, the world's biggest companies are today in AI. Look at Nvidia, look at what's going on, and it's very disruptive. Sometimes, you always are wondering, are you keeping up with the speed? And you're always lacking behind. It's just moving so fast because AI is innovating AI for itself. And defense and aerospace is not an exception. It's going to be obviously. So I think there are 2-3 ways that we look at AI. And I personally believe this is where we can probably make a difference. First of all, are we using AI? Because one of the areas which we lack, now I'll talk about India specifically, is skills in the country. Okay, skills, and of course the second part is innovation, which I said I'll talk more about. When I talk about skills, in defense, we are skilling people, and obviously across the country also skill is a big issue. If we want to achieve the GDP growth that we want to achieve over the next few years, if we don't have enough skilled labor, I think we'll never achieve those goals. Now, can AI play a critical role in training our younger people faster? Can we create systems in the companies which use AI to train people faster? Defense would be obviously part of that. That is on the global ecosystem. Now, coming particularly to the products that we make, of course, AI is a very important part of it. All our customers want systems to be faster, to analyze faster, to look at capabilities that are available. And we are doing a lot of work in SAMTL, which is obviously proprietary, to innovate and use AI to give future products which are, competing with the best in the world in terms of technology, and AI will play a critical role there.
Puneet, you heard the defense minister this morning and the defense secretary. You also heard the vice chief of the air staff speaking about, the need for clarity, the need for, global supply chains, Indian companies being part of that international ecosystem as well. Yours is a good example of that. My question to you is, are Indian companies, in your view, doing enough to face the domestic challenges that you see and that you face here in terms of requirements and in terms of the policy frameworks?
I think a lot is happening, and more, it's like glass half full, glass half empty, okay? You have to look at opportunity-wise, be positive and look at glass half full. But reality is that there is that half glass which is not full as well. So I think what is happening over here is we are doing a lot. Now, let's come back to innovation. When you talk about domestic industry, look at the global statistics here. 0.5% of our GDP is spent on innovation and R&D in India. Global average is about 2.5%. The advanced countries are actually at about 4 to 5%. Look at the gap here. Anyways, we are catching up, and on top of that, the innovation of part of the GDP is very small, and our GDP is growing. It's about 4 trillion. So can that 0.5% of the GDP or less than that move up significantly? I think RM did talk about it in his message today. Now, unless we kind of create an ecosystem which is innovating enough and competing with the world, we will always be looking at TOTs, BTPs, and always looking at technology partners. How will we ever evolve? We can't always keep on following the West or the other countries which are doing technology development maybe better than us. So now coming to the question, do we have the skill sets available? I personally believe that we do have the young talent, that raw talent that is coming out. If we put them in the right direction, we just need little bit of mentoring, little bit of focus on what we want to kind of teach them, and we'll create this ecosystem for sure. But if we are not doing this and we're not doing this enough, we will never create that world-class ecosystem. And once we do that for our domestic industry, obviously, we will obviously be doing it for the world as well. So I think the vision for this should be global and then catering to the domestic industry. And then we are actually catering to the entire world together,
This is a bit of an unfair question, but I still want to ask it, Puneet, which is that in your view, why hasn't India been able to produce, a company that is truly global? I'm not saying a Lockheed Martin or something like that, but a truly global defense powerhouse. And do we have it in us to create a company of that kind?
Absolutely, we do. I think what is lacking is still, we have started on that road, but it is still, as we discussed in multiple discussions today. It's a long road. First of all, defense is a long gestation industry. It takes time. We started off long back, so what we are doing today. You need to have patience, resilience, and most importantly, you need to have your customer holding your hand. Now, in our case, honestly, Air Force was there and they held our hand. They wanted these products to be indigenized. We are live examples of that. But are we doing enough? So coming back to your question of how do we create this? I think one of the things, if you look at in the global examples, is are we developing more private sector players in terms of really investing in the terms of investment into the company and also their ecosystem and holding their hands? Because see, when you are developing products, sometimes you give a timeline of 3 to 5 years. You get delays. But if you still have the faith and you walk that path, you will have more companies like us which are actually producing for the world. And I personally believe that this is where government can step in. They are already doing their bit in terms of so many other programs that we hear about. But are we doing enough? I think we can do more. And as we kind of walk that path, invest into these ecosystems, create those center of excellences, hold their hand during this journey, and then you will see many more successful examples in the country coming up.
Let's sharpen that just a little bit, Puneet, in terms of the prescriptions or the wish list that you would like to articulate from the policymakers, from the government. And we had the defense minister and the defense secretary there today, here on this platform. What are maybe the 2 or 3 specific as possible recommendations or requests that you would have as an industrialist at a time when there is, let's face it, a transformation in not only how the industry is perceived post Operation Sindoor, but requirements have also exponentially changed now.
So, Atmanirbharta today, as RM also mentioned, is not a word for drawing room. It is a necessity, probably the only way to survive now. Post Operation Sindoor, this is very clear. If you want to really thrive, we can't depend on anybody but ourselves. So Atmanirbharta is the mantra to survive, first of all. Second, I think coming to your particular point, if I look at first of all, there's a lot that is happening in terms of the DPP that keeps on evolving. We talked about some of the new policies that Defense Secretary mentioned today that are coming up. Some new manuals. These manuals take time to come to actually companies like us because some of the programs take their own time and we need to connect those manuals with the real program and then take an advantage of that. So those are the challenges. But coming to your specific, I think, question, we should focus on, as I said a couple of times, we should focus on creating some heroes in the industry for specific areas. Center of excellence is the right word again. And they should be given trust. They should be trusted in terms of giving enough orders, in terms of giving enough, in terms of if there are any funds required, but create that ecosystem and you will see that they will be making you proud not only for your own requirements, for the global requirements as well. And I think we need more examples of those. And I'm sure that government is thinking in those lines and more will happen as we speak, because I can vouch for this, that the changes I've seen in the last 10 years in terms of what they are doing in the ground, and the confidence that our armed forces have to work with private sector is changing tremendously. And I can vouch for that. So all that is coming from the support from the top. And I think that ecosystem is evolving. But I think we need to evolve faster. Are we evolving faster is the question. I think we are not. I think there are concerns. If there is another Operation 3.0, or Operation Sindoor 3.0, I think we are probably, still lacking behind. We need to really buckle up.
Okay, so the imperative and the momentum to actually buckle up, as you put it, is definitely there, and I think the indications are there from the leaders of government as well that this will in fact happen. Another interesting aspect of this day and age we live in right now, Puneet, is the fact that India's international partnerships, our relations with other countries, are being tested like never before. Yours is a company, that very much operates in an international space, depends on international supply chains, ecosystems, relations between countries. Give us your perspective from Samtel on how you war game and prepare for frictions currently between, India and the United States. We're seeing what's happening. How do you prepare and navigate such things?
So, talking about US specifically, first of all, power is power. Okay, they are what they are, and Mr. Trump has got that. He's inherited that system, so he's using it to his advantage. But that's okay. That's everybody thinks for their own themselves. I think for us, the answer really is, my first answer to that is to prepare ourselves better. Are we, instead of looking at the world, are we doing enough within our country to make our country in different parts of the industries or systems or processes, in different kind of, institutions, enough to strengthen those? This is the opportunity, this is the time to do that. If we can come out of this with a more stronger ecosystem inside our country, we would be able to fight all this much better. If we will keep on depending on outsiders, I think we will never answer this question. So my belief is that we should depend on ourselves. We have a very big opportunity in our country. We have a, a big economy, robust economy. Most of the demographics are young Indians, and we have a lot to going for us. So I think we have to first focus on that. Now, coming to your question, actually, we are in a situation that we are growing. Country is at a point where I think personally we can't be ignored anymore. So I feel that even if there is, you can always say rough weather friends, and you can ask questions, are there rough weather friends or not? But reality is that India's ecosystem is kind of now required by the world as well, for the markets we have, for the systems, for the kind of future we have, not only in defense sector, but otherwise as well. So I think we would be partnering with most of the countries which are looking at growth, because growth will be happening in very few countries in the world, and India is one of them. So how can you ignore India? And defense industry and defense budgets are to speak for that as we grow in the future.
India is a country that cannot be ignored, but there is work ahead that simply needs doing, and it has to be done with clarity. It has to be done with the kind of momentum, perhaps, that the current situation affords the country. And I'm sure that, young entrepreneurs getting into the defense space, those creating startups, wanting to be part of what they see as a growth spurt in the defense technology space, they will be very inspired by your words. Puneet Kaura, thank you very much for speaking to us here and being here at the NDTV Defence Summit.